Welcome in, builders. Today we are taking a look at Yomi, the Oni Kings. This nation has a special place in my heart because not only is it one of my favorite nations, it is the first nation that I streamed of Dominion 6. And I think it shows. The stream is a little rough. It's a lot rough, but please be kind and forgiving about that. It was my first go trying to do Dominions. But today we are going to do a pregame video for that and maybe share some of my newfound insights into the game and just get this in line with the rest of the content. So let's dive into Yomi Oni Kings. Yomi is a land of inhospitable mountains, steaming sulfuric pools, and sudden volcanic eruptions. At the center of this unforgiving land lies a great cone-shaped mountain, at the top of which is the entrance to the netherworld. From this gate, the Oni have come, one by one or in small groups. Onis are demons of the wild, ugly, pot-bellied, and mischievous. They are ruled by the Oni kings, who occasionally emerge from the netherworld to wreak havoc on the land of the living. Oni are almost immortal and must be killed in spirit as well as body if they are to stay dead. They are worshipped by human priests who build profane temple gates through which even more Oni can enter the land. A bit of a small introduction to the nation there. This is a nation themed after Japanese mythology, and specifically the Oni. And they're very flavorful and have some pretty unique mechanics. So to me, it's a theme I like, and they're just a lot of fun. Let's take a look at their national features. For a race, we have actual demons, and we have reduced income. Halved income from heat and cold scales, extra gold and resources in cave forts. So that's a whole lot to unpack there. So some of our troops are actual demons, like actual recruitable demons, as are our free spawns. In addition to that, as we'll see here in a second, we also have some Bakemono, who are like kind of goblins, I suppose, and some humans who we lord over. We have halved income effects from heat and cold scales. So we prefer just neutral heat scales. However, the penalty for being beyond those is halved. So if you had heat 2, you're only penalized as if you were heat 1. We also get extra gold and resources in cave forts. So like many nations that like caves, we are actually much stronger in 6 than we were in 5 because we can get down to the cave layer, and as a trait, demons have dark vision. So we are actually really good down there. And some of our troops match up pretty well against the type of targets that you will find in the cave layer. So we actually have pretty decent expansion down there, maybe a little surprisingly so. For our military, we have semi-immortal Oni, Bakemono, and human servants. We use light infantry, medium infantry, and we have no recruitable sacred troops. We do have some summons that are sacred, along with, I believe, a Freespawn too. For magic, we have good death, fire, earth, and we have a little bit of air and nature. We have some decently powerful mages, but we're really bad at research. Let me underline that. We are really bad at research. So we're a nation that actually has some pretty hefty research goals with some pretty major power spikes if we can get there. But getting there is going to be trouble because our researchers are they're either bad or hard to get. We have, they say some. Maybe they were playing Kailasa before this nation. We have a lot of national summons. For our priests, we are weak. I believe Holy One is our best recruitable. And our provinces with temples spawn Oni. And this is a really big mechanic for us. You are not going to get many or any Oni spawning unless you have a temple. So you really, really, really want to temple spam. And depending on the scales in the area and the terrain will affect how things are spawning. So there's both the impetus to spam temples everywhere, but also to be strategic about the land you're taking so that you can get a temple there. For our scales and blesses, we have a turmoil limit bonus of +1, meaning that we could go down to turmoil 3, or we could go up to order 1. For us, because we use demons and demons generally like turmoil and unrest, we are going to want to go into turmoil. For buildings, we only have primitive forts, so we do not even build equal to the technology of the era. On the bright side, that means our infrastructure is a little bit cheaper, and we really don't do a ton of recruiting of these guys, and if we did, they're actually kind of cheap, so that's not too bad. Our income's not going to be the best, but ideally we transition over into more Freespawn, so these are not something you're going to get too many of. In addition, we also have half-price temples, which plays into needing them just everywhere, frankly. For sites, we only have one site. We have the Mountain of the Oni Kings. And this is the recruitment of our cap-only Oni, which is an amazing unit. And it produces 3 death gems, a fire, in earth, and in air. So a good spread here. We have uses for all of these. A nice income for us. Units, Freespawn, and Sacreds. We do not have a very large roster here because we have quite a few Freespawn. For our actual recruitable troops, we have Bakemono Sho, who can be recruited in our forts in addition to all highlands and mountains. These guys are very cheap. They're 7 gold, 1 resource, 3 recruitment point. They have stealthy, they're mountain survival, forest survival, they have 50% dark vision, they're undisciplined, and they have mountain recruitment too. Mountain recruitment means that if you are recruiting them in a terrain that is designated as a mountain, they are 2 gold cheaper. So instead of having to pay the 7, we would only have to pay 5. So that's a pretty good, that's like a quarter off on these guys. So anybody who has this, strongly consider trying to get them in those areas where they are cheaper. For his equipment, he has a length 1 club with 10 attack and 12 damage, and he's armored with some furs. He has below average HP and strength and defense and simply average attack. I would not generally get these guys. I suppose you could use them to help patrol. We are going to have some unrest issues that maybe you want to resolve to try to keep your income pretty good. The better version of the Bakemono Sho is the same guy, but now he's using a Yari. A Yari is kind of like a Japanese spear, and it is a length 4 weapon. I should also note that the Bakemono are size 2, so you can have 5 of these guys in a single square. So a single square with 5 guys with length 4, attack 11 is actually quite the tar pit if they don't have AoE. That is a pretty good repelling weapon. The same gold cost at 7, but we do have the discount in mountains. We've doubled our resources up to 2 and 3 recruitment points. I really like Bakemono Sho. These are an indie that I'm always excited to find on other nations, and we can just recruit them. They still maintain their stealth, so you can actually use these guys to kind of do some surprise raiding or something. Just with our pure numbers and our ability to repel, they're better than they may otherwise look. I like these guys a lot. I never get the clubs. I always go with the Yari. I suppose if you just absolutely knew you were fighting Long Dead, maybe the clubs would be better, but frankly, I would just go with these. For the last of our Bakemono, we have the Bakemono Archer. He has the same stat line as we've been looking. He, however, is using a dagger and a short bow. Do note, we are only 9 strength, which hurts our bow quite a bit. They're okay. If I was going to go archers, though, I would probably go over here to the bandit. So I'm not in love with this guy. I do suppose he is dirt cheap, and he is still stealthy. So those are a couple benefits in his favor. Do note that we do have fire that is high enough to do fire arrows. And one of the benefits of these guys would be their size 2. So with 5 of them in a square, it's much easier to put envenom arrows or flame arrows on them. And that takes the damage portion of this out of the equation, essentially, because you will be doing that 8 armor-piercing fire damage. That is definitely a consideration here if you actually get enchant high enough to do that. Next up, we have a bandit. He is also wielding the Yari. 9 gold, 11 resources, 5 recruitment points. These are weaker than normal humans. He's only got 9 HP. He's not particularly trained. He only has 9 defense. But he at least has a length 4 weapon for repelling. He has 11 attack, which is okay. He does have stealthy, and he is a pillager. Pillager is a special command you can do that does like extra destructive damage to a province, and you extract a little bit of gold and you kill some population and you add a lot of unrest. So this is not something that is good in your own lands or lands that you're going to keep, but when you're raiding another person and you're pretty sure they're going to take it back, it's nice just to do more damage to them. In addition, that unrest is really good for some of our demons who have chaos power, which instead of turmoil scales, you can substitute in high levels of unrest for extra combat bonuses. So you might try pillaging a bunch of land that you know you're going to be fighting in just to raise that up and help your demons out a little bit. Next, we have the bandit, I guess, archer. I don't know why he didn't add archer onto his name. He is actually a little bit interesting in that he has a wakizashi, which is a length 1, I think you'd classify this as a sword. Pretty good, actually. A 12 attack with 15 slashing piercing is not the worst length 1 weapon. It's actually, I would say, pretty good, especially in early era. He's also wielding a short bow. Note, he does have the full 10 strength. If you're not going to be buffing, I think these guys are better because they have the 11 attack, or excuse me, the 11 piercing damage rather than the 10 because of the strength difference. They also are pillagers. You could use these in your raiding parties. And they are wearing the Ashigaru armor, which is actually pretty decent armor. For 2 encumbrance, you get 12 body protection. That's not bad, although it is pretty encumbering, so we only have a map move of 10. They are not very quick on their feet. In addition, they have the Jingasa, which is a pretty decent hat. Not the best, not the worst. And I should note that the bandit with the Yari is equipped the same way. These guys are all right. They're nothing to write home about, though. And because of that, I tend to really lean into the Freespawn and the super combatant ability of this nation. So I tend to like to go very heavy turmoil and very heavy sloth, which makes it very hard to get these 2 units because 16 resources for a short bow is pricey. That is really pricey. And they're only morale 10. These aren't heroic bandits. While they're totally usable, I don't love these guys. Okay, next, let's take a look at our Freespawn. And this is going to look more confusing than it actually really is. We have semi-immortal Oni. And what that means is when you kill their physical form, they turn into an ethereal spirit form. And if they manage to survive the battle or retreat as a spirit, they come back as a full Oni. So in order to kill them, you have to kill the physical body and then you have to kill the spirit. That actually makes them a lot tougher than they may otherwise look. And when we get to spells, we will look at a spell that can give all of our demons 15 invulnerability, which means that if you're fighting somebody who doesn't have magic weapons, even our lowly little Ko-Oni here is ridiculously hard to get rid of. Quite interesting. Let's go down and take a look. The Ko-Oni is our basic demon that can spawn as free spawn. So no cost because he's free spawning, and no upkeep because he is a free spawn. So you can get some pretty powerful troops that do not have to be upkept, which is really handy. Let's take a look at him. So stat-wise, this is our weakest little Oni. He's only size 2, 9 HP, 10 strength, 11 attack, 12 defense. 7 combat speed, so they're kind of slow. That is kind of notable. They don't zip across the battlefield very well, and combat speed is taken into effect of who strikes first win. So they tend to get hit first before they're able to get hits out. So just something to keep in mind there. Trait-wise, as demons, they do not actually need to eat, so they don't need supplies. They are actual demons. Demon here means that we are vulnerable to certain things that both priests and some spells can target. We are not affected by spells that only target undead, such as Withered Bones. In addition, all demons have perfect dark vision, and that's going to apply to anybody who we see with the demon trait. We have mountain survival, we are pillagers. However, a lot of our demons also have gluttony. Gluttony means even though I don't have to eat, I'm going to do it anyways. And not only that, I'm going to do it as if I was 1 size point larger. So he eats as if he was a size 3 unit. Another reason that perhaps you want to stick to your free spawn is that if they don't actually have food, they won't starve because they don't actually need it, and they're going to use up a ton of supplies. So if I was dragging around a horde of bandits, my bandits may end up starving because the Oni are going to eat everything. We have Spirit Sight, which allows us to see through invisible units and some other buffs that people can do. So not only do we have dark vision, we also have spirit sight. Pretty potent combo there. We have chaos power. Chaos power is very important for these types of units. So this unit is more powerful in provinces with high turmoil and less powerful in province with order. Unrest in the province will also count towards turmoil. Every 15 points of unrest counts as one more turmoil. Chaos power also affects the stealth value of sneaking units. Very important that we have a turmoil, and if we can't get turmoil, we want unrest. This applies to strength, attack, and I believe defense, and combat speed. So quite powerful. Let me see if we can actually grab a dude that's someplace that has some. So over here, I've got Turmoil 3. Let's look at his stats. Yes, they are applying here. So in addition to the Turmoil, we also have Unrest. So we are over that 15. If we look at his stats here, look at this. This is way more impressive than what we were just looking at. 15 attack on our random chaff unit, 16 defense, 11 combat speed, so we're not complete goobers anymore. That is very different stats than what we were just looking at. And this could go a lot higher if we had more unrest. So it just goes to show how important that is and how crippling order can be to us. We are wielding a length 1 club with 11 attack and 13 blunt damage. Not the best weapon. If we were to lose our mortal form, we would go into an Oni spirit. This is very similar to what we just looked at. We have less HP, we have similar stats, and do note we still have chaos power, so you still could have these buffed up quite a bit. Most notably for these guys, I would say the attack skill and the defense skill, because as a spirit, we are poison resistance 25, we are now undead, we still don't eat, we are ethereal. So high defense. So let's say you just have a +3. So 15 defense and ethereal makes these guys pretty hard to get rid of with just mundane weapons. You really need to be banishing them, which is going to go up against our magic resist. In this form, we are vulnerable to salt. Salt is an item that you can craft at construction level 3, and it does an area of effect 1 attack, and it will just chain stun your Oni spirits. So really, really dangerous. I don't hear a lot of people talking about that as a counter to Yomi. It's generally considered something you use against genies, but we do have the same weakness. In addition, we have Spirit Form. Spirit Form means we can't do spells like Iron Skin, Skeletal Body, or Polymorph. We also cannot be petrified or get diseases, and we have affliction healing effects. So we can't be healed out of afflictions, essentially. Do note that that doesn't say anything about invulnerability. So our big spell that we can do does affect these guys. We are still pillagers, we still have spirit sight, and we're still undisciplined. But our weapon changed over to a spectral club. A spectral club is a length 1. We currently have 11 attack, but remember with that power, it might be higher. And it's still blunt damage, but now it's magic. So we have pretty easy access to magic weapons, which is a very nice bonus to have. Next up, we have the Aka Oni, and we have the Ao Oni. These are dependent on the heat scale of where they are spawning. So the Aka Oni is the heat version. They are definitely a step up from our little Ko-Oni. We are now at 14 hit points. We have 13 strength, 11 attack, 10 defense. Again, note we have that chaos power, so same things apply there. We are fire resistant 5. We have essentially the same traits. And in addition, we have Pause Unrest 0.03. So if you had 3 of these guys, you would produce almost 1 unrest every single turn. So, if you had 30 of these guys, if you had 90 of these guys, you can actually cause a lot of unrest wherever they're sitting around. And this can be a little bit of a problem for you because while we do have lots of Freespawn, we are not a Therados or a middle-aged Ermor or an Asphodel. We actually do still need our gold to get researchers and leaders. So you might need to use some Bakiono to go around and patrol out your main tax sectors to try to keep your income up. However, This also helps our combat abilities, so it's kind of a push and pull on that. For weapons, we have a Great Club, which is length 2, attack 11, 23 blunt damage, so a big step up in damage. In addition, we have Throw Flames, which is a range 25, attack 8, 10 fire damage / magic damage. It is an armor-piercing attack, and it only costs 5 fatigue. So when at the beginning of combat, because these are undisciplined and there's nothing we can do about that, these guys tend to like to stand still and throw their fires. I do believe because this is a throw weapon, I think if you buff their strength, they will throw further and do more damage. I have not tested that though. If that's the case, giant strength would be pretty darn nice on that because we can't script them. They're going to throw it anyways. You might as well make it good. Once they hit 50 fatigue, they will stop throwing flames and they will move into melee mode and will stay in melee mode, I believe, for the rest of the fight. These guys are really nice though. Just like our other guys, if they were to get killed, they will switch over to a spirit form. Same changes that we saw in the other one. I'm not going to go through these on each one. They have the same resistances and the same weaknesses, and they all change over to spectral weapons. So very nice, very survivable. They're only 7 HP, but again, if you're in that chaos power, you're going to have decent defense and you're ethereal, so can actually be pretty tough. I do like the Aka Oni more than the Owl Oni because the fire is just generally better than the cold, and we have fire magic in our nation, and we don't have any good water magic for cold spells. If you were to get cold ones, though, the Owl Oni is the same exact chassis. However, he has switched out fire resistance for cold resistance, and instead of throw fires, he has cold. This does fatigue damage. It's armor piercing, and it is a melee attack, not a ranged attack. Well, maybe this would be good. Like if we had a Ko-Oni that had this, that would be pretty decent. However, they're probably going to squish most things with their Great Club before 20 fatigue damage really matters. 20 is the point where a unit starts taking combat penalties for being tired. So you do have that if you're going up against something that you can't squish very easily, but you can hit. So something with really high protection, low defense, that could be useful. Overall, though, I like the fire ones a lot more. Next up, we have the Oni. And this is just the baseline guy. He's got his Oni loincloth. Look at that. Very classic. He has 24 HP. He's a size 4. Strength 16, attack 12, defense 13. Do note we have the chaos power, so this is a lot better than it may otherwise look. Same exact traits as our other demons, and he actually causes unrest 0.5, so we have moved up some. He is pretty well equipped. I should say, only 6 natural protection, so he is not very well protected. He is pretty well equipped, though. We have a Nodachi, which is a nice two-handed weapon. 14 attack and 28 slashing. You kill a lot of human troops easily in a single hit. And even something with like 16 protection, you're going to hack through that pretty effectively. In addition, they have 2 javelins that they will throw at the beginning of combat. Again, you're undisciplined, so you can't control it. They're just going to do it. These guys are okay. They're okay. We have much better, though, coming up. Again, if they were to die in physical form, they would flip over to spiritual form and have a spectral greatsword. Otherwise, similar stats. Next up, we have the Kuro Oni, and this is a pretty big step up. This is a pretty big step up because now we have throw flames and spit poison. That's really good. That's really good. So he has fire resistance and he has poison resistance. His cause unrest is the 0.5, otherwise has the same traits that we've been looking at. Similar stats to the previous Oni, also wielding the Nodachi, and he's good at it. But now we can not only throw flames, we also have a poison spit. And the poison spit has ammo, so you're not going to use up fatigue to do it. And yeah, poison, magic damage, armor negating, that's really nice. These guys are really nice. You'd be surprised how killy these guys actually are. And that's just nice to mix in a couple different damage types. Makes it harder for armies to just completely counter you. And again, they would switch over to a spirit form if they lose their physical form. Finally, we have the Amano Jahu. This guy is amazing. Absolutely amazing. So he is sacred. So we do have a free spawn sacred. However, these guys are very, very rare. I feel like to get these, they probably come out of mountains and highlands and maybe your capital only that have a temple and your dominion and have pretty good unrest / turmoil scales. If you do get these guys though, man, they are sweet. We've got the fire resistance, we've got the poison resistance. They actually have snow move. So if you did go cold, these guys can actually move around okay, which is good because they're only map move 8. They're very slow. We have mountain survival, we're pillager 2, gluttony 3. So we eat as if we're a size 7 giant. So they are hungry boys. We still have the chaos power, so our stats are much better than they might otherwise look when we are in turmoil. We have the Nodachi, we have the throw flames, we have the javelins, and now we are wearing heavy samurai armor, which is a 18 protection armor. So if you check them out here, we have 7 natural protection on our head and 22 on our body. These guys are actually pretty darn tough. And remember, if they do die, they go to a spirit form. And if they don't die as a spirit, they reform back to this. So these guys are absolutely amazing. We are probably taking a bless for our Daioni, which we will look at in commanders, but these guys like similar blesses to them, so that is not a problem. In most games, you're never going to get very many of these. I want to say in my longer test games, I got maybe 15 or 20 of them, maybe. Like, yeah, they are really rare. I do wish you could somehow influence it to get more of these guys because they are so amazing. Heroes, commanders, and prophet. For heroes, we have 3 good heroes. We have the Ghost General. He is a Death 2 good leader at 150 leadership. Do note he has undead leadership, which is required to lead demons at 250. So he gets a +2 for up to 4 squads. He is really, really good. Death 2 with a little bit of research, you wouldn't waste him on that. He is amphibious. He has fear, cold resist, poison resist. He's undead. Doesn't need to eat. He has a chill aura, so watch out for that. He is ethereal, just right off the bat. He is floating. He's weak to the salt, and he's very weak to the salt, it should be noted. And he has spirit sight. Do notice he doesn't have spirit form, so you can actually buff this guy. He comes in with a Bane Blade, and he's wearing heavy samurai armor and a kabuto, which is the helmet or hat. I don't know which you would designate that as. Either way, he is really, really good. That's a lot of leadership. Our demons are kind of sort of cowardly. I guess I didn't talk about that too much, but here is morale 9. Here is morale 15, and the others are up a little bit. But we're going to have a lot of Ko-Oni and a lot of Aka-Oni who are not, I mean, I guess the Aka-Oni is okay, but the Ko-Oni are quite cowardly. Getting that extra leadership is really, really nice there. Next up, we have Master of the Shadow Blossom, a very strong mage. 1 fire, 2 earth, 4 death, and a blood. He's an actual demon. He has fire resistance, he has mountain survival, he has 100% dark vision, and he has sight vengeance. So if somebody attacks him, they have to make a magic resist save or go blind. And he wields a magic staff. Definitely not a fighter or a thug. You're going to want him to cast spells. He's our best death. You know, he's tied for our best death, but he doesn't require any randoms to get there. And he is our only blood, if that is something that interests you. He's also an absolutely amazing leader, 310. However, he does not do morale bonuses because he's not good at human leadership. So if you just need to move giant chunks around, he can do it for you. I think you'd be very happy if this guy spawns for you. In addition, he could help with research, which is something we heard on. Next, we have the Devourer of Demons. He is a demon general that is like really rough and tumble. He's got 1 fire, 1 death. He actually comes with regeneration. He is a demon, and he's an inspirational leader. So he does +3 for up to 4 squads, essentially, and has pretty good demon leadership. Not much else to say about him. Usable. It's nice to see usable heroes, not like human wannabe thugs. For commanders, we have a decent little spread here. We have the Bandit Leader, who is Stealthy 40. This is essentially a scout, but he also could be your Pillager Leader if you're going to do that. We have the Bakemono Chief. Now, do note, the Bandit is 60 gold, 16 resources, 1 recruitment. The Bakemono is 60 gold, 8 resources, 1 recruitment for the same stealth of 40. In addition, he has some survivals and dark vision. I tend to get these guys to lead around Bakemono if I'm getting them to do patrolling. I also use these guys as scouts. Now, unfortunately, they are a little pricier than a normal scout. So if you found independent scouts, you would prefer to use those, but these guys are okay at doing the same job. Next up, we have a surprisingly important unit for Yomi. We have the Demon Priest. He is 75 gold, which is, I believe, 10 gold cheaper than an independent priest. 1 resource, 1 recruitment point. He's a priest level 1, and he is sacred, and he has a random 10% chance to get fire, air, earth, or death. None of those are sounding too good. However, because we have Freespawn, and we have Freespawn that are going to pop up all over the place if things are going well for you, it's really hard to actually gather them up. Note that, like our other leaders here, do not have undead leadership, so they cannot ferry things around. He at least starts with 10, so baseline he can at least help. I very often take even just a single point of undead leadership in our Bless, which will allow him to carry around 60 units. So in the game back here, you can see I've got several of these guys out and about, and they're just collecting the Freespawn for me. If we look at him, he's got 65 leadership. That's because of his experience. But he'd have 60 otherwise. Do I have a non-experienced one? Yeah, here we go. 60. They also come in close to old age, so they probably will old age out, but they're really cheap. You're not expecting them to do anything in combat, just ferry guys around, so that's not the end of the world. That's not a big issue. Next up, we have the Namanari. This is probably our researcher. She is 90 gold, 1 resource, 2 recruitment points. Do note it is noted here, can be recruited in all highlands and mountains. And because she's not sacred, you only need a lab. You would be slow to recruit if you're not at a fort, but you can get 2 or 3 labs out and maybe get some more of these in because they've only got 9 research. Now, they are efficient. They're only 72 gold a year, but that's not going to hurry you along. A slow to recruit 9 research mage as your researcher. Yeah, that hurts. That hurts a lot. They do have mountain survival. They have swamp survival. They have a supply bonus because of their nature magic. And we have some national spells that target these and turn them into other units. So we'll talk about that when we get there. Overall, this is probably your researcher because we have the sorcerer. He is 160 gold. He's only morale 8, and he costs 128 gold upkeep for only 11 research ability. Sometimes it's okay to take a mage who's not efficient as your researcher because they just give you so much research. This is not that case. We are slightly below efficiency, and we're not even that high. For 2 less, we are 50 gold more, like 56 gold more in upkeep. So 2 of these guys would have the same upkeep as 3 of the other ones. 3 of the other ones are going to give us like 24 research, and 2 of these guys are only going to be 22. So for research purposes, I wouldn't get this guy. However, he does have decent pathing here. He's got earth and death, and he has a random of fire, air, earth, or death. You may end up using these guys as kind of some light combat mages. The earth 2 especially would be nice because you could earth power, and you could do like strength of giants, you could do weapons of sharpness, you could do the various earth buffs that are really nice. With the fire, you could do a little magma throwing. With the death one, you could do some skelly spam, which would actually be okay. It might draw some of the banishes away from your demons, but this isn't super reliable or anything. One of the main things we need him for is to get out sight searching, especially for the air and the fire, I would say. But the death is useful too, and the earth. In addition, we probably need to do some early crafting. We'll talk about that when we get to the unit who needs it. And this guy is the cheaper guy who can do it. Next up, we have the Demon General. Now, this is actually a human troop that serves the Oni Kings. So he's not an actual demon. He just goes by that because he thinks it's cool. But he has Death 1. Not the best path ever, but leaders who have something to do while still being safe in the back, I value pretty highly. So for 175 gold, he has 2 recruitment points. You get 150 leadership, which includes 100 undead leadership. Our other leaders are not actually good leaders, even if they can move a lot of guys around. This guy will actually help with morale checks. In addition, Death 1 is not the worst pathing. He can at least skeletal body, which makes him much more resistant to arrow fire. Note, he doesn't have a shield. And you could do something like Frighten, or throw a skeleton out, or throw a little death spell. He could do something. He can do something, and I value that quite a bit. In addition, he's not like super likely to just eat an arrow in it beyond just buffing himself. He's got 15 protection, 17 on the head and 15 on the body. He's wearing samurai armor and a kabuto, and he wields a katana, which is a really nice weapon. 16 attack with 19 slashing/pierce damage. That is a nice weapon. That is totally fine. He can chop a few people up if they get to him. So I like these guys quite a bit. It's hard to get them out of your capital, though, so you're probably going to need other forts to help you get them out. Next up, we have the Onishugo. Onishugos are pretty decent. They're a little pricey, though. 275 gold, not slow to recruit, 34 resources. They're size 4. They have good protection, 21 protection. Because they have high natural protection and they're wearing decent armor, we end up with 21 on the head and 22 on the body. That's really respectable. In addition, they start with 1d6 wolves at the beginning of every combat. They're just random chaff that will run out and soak a couple hits for you. Pretty nice. For pathing, they have Death Magic 2 and a random of Fire, Air, or Earth. So decent there. These guys are a little tricky, though. They kind of have high encumbrance. Spellcasting encumbrance is 9. So they're going to poop themselves out really quick casting. They also have good combat stuff. We have high armor and a good weapon with the Nodachi. I don't know. I struggle finding really good uses for these guys. I do like them as army thugs. So take this guy, give him a buff or 2, and let him wade into combat alongside your other demons who maybe you have the junkier ones who aren't quite as good at attacking. Should be noted, though, they have Oni Summoner 25. This unit has a chance of attracting 1 or more co-Onis per month. The Oni will only come if there's unrest or turmoil in the province. The higher the unrest or turmoil, the more chance that a group will spawn. The value is the ability is also a modifier to this chance. So if you were to get a few of these guys, they will definitely help you get some more co-Oni out. Now, do note they cause unrest 2.0 each, so you probably want to keep these away from where you're getting most of your income, because you want to keep unrest down in those areas and then up in others. So especially like, let's say you have maybe a province that is spawning demons out of a temple. Maybe you have one of these guys sit there and he can spawn some of his own and collect demons and then move out. Especially if you don't take a undead command bless for your priest. Maybe you do it with these guys. But this is quite a premium, and we are not a good economy nation. We're going to struggle with money, so I don't know how many of these you can afford to get out. If you are using them, though, they are sacred. They do have the fire resist. They do have the poison resist. They do have the snow move. They do have the chaos power. They are not good researchers at all. 110 gold for 7 research is garbage. A very usable troop, kind of utility with that extra spawning. Note that they're not good leaders, though. You give a -1 to people that are leading. So I don't think you want these as your battle generals, but they would be fine moving things around. Maybe they take it to your main army, they hand them off to a demon general, and then they stay around to thug a little bit. Maybe they could do something like that. Finally, we have the crown jewel of Yomi, the Dai Oni. I would say this guy is a super combatant. He's that good. 685 gold is nothing to sniff at. They're cap only, slow to recruit. But you get 50 HP, 20 strength, 14 attack, 13 defense, a 12 combat speed, which is actually kind of high for us. We have good magic resist at 18. We have good protection at 19. Do note he's not wearing a hat. And we have morale of 18. And he's an okay leader at 80, but that still gives you a penalty, and he can move a lot of demons around. He has out of the box Fire 2, Earth 2, Death 3, Priest level 1, and a random of Fire, Air, Earth, Death. Very nice pathing here for a super combatant. This is basically what you want. I will note they don't natively have regen or any way to regen, so that is a little bit of a downside for a super combatant. Now, you could take that on your bless, but that can end up being pretty pricey. In addition, we are sacred ourselves. We have fear. Very strong, very strong. Having that chaos power, again, means these stats are much higher than they might otherwise look. Let's say we have the +3, 16 defense, 17 attack, and we do have a enchanted Nodachi, which is a length 3 weapon. So you can actually repel quite well with him, and he ends up having pretty good defense. You have the throw flames attack and the javelin attack. You usually won't use these because you're going to be casting spells or you're going to be in melee combat. Do note that we have a high spellcasting encumbrance, so you probably are not like a combat mage that's going to be throwing offensive spells. You mostly want to buff and then wade into combat with these guys. This is a very strong base for a super combatant. One note here is no hat. I find that one of the biggest weaknesses to these guys is actually archer fire. You tend to end up getting hit in the head more than I'm comfortable with. So I would often say in the early game, you want to go construction 1 so that we can forge just a black steel helmet. It's a 5 earth gem helmet that gives you 24 protection and no extra encumbrance. If we were to look at one of my guys who's using it, so here's a guy, he's got just the helmet on. That takes his protection up to 24 on the head and 18 on the body, unbuffed. That is a big jump, and the ones that have that tend to stay pretty healthy. The ones that didn't get helmets tend to start packing up afflictions. And once you get started on that route, it's kind of all over for them. Very strong unit. When we talk about blesses, I'll show you what my thoughts are on that, but having the fear just base makes them very good for that. In addition, just a good base hit points and good pathing for thug/super combatant type spells. In addition to all of that, they cause 3 unrest per turn each, and they are Oni Summoner 50. So these guys will tend to trail a few co-Oni each turn, just kind of wherever they're going. So that can be pretty nice just to keep those numbers up. For profit, I think on this nation, you start with a Onishugo, and I tend to make him my profit turn 1 because we struggle to get the ball rolling a little bit, and that just helps me get going. When he dies, you could do the Dione. Again, I hate doing that on big mages because they have other things to do, and your Dione is probably going to wade into combat, which you generally don't want your prophet to be doing. If you rolled like a death 4-1 that you weren't going to take into combat, you were going to save him for rituals or something, maybe that would be better. But do note they have 274 gold upkeep a year, so you can't have this guy sitting around. He needs to be out earning his keep. If you didn't want to do any of those guys, a Demon General would be okay as a choice, but he actually has things to do, unlike a lot of them. Maybe one of your summons could also be an option. You could also go with a stealth chassis for your prophet. I could see an argument for that here. Or we have some summons who are flying. Maybe save for one of those. Hard to say on that one. I do think you want the prophet though, because you don't get your free spawn based on the strength of your dominion. You get it based on your dominion being there. So you definitely want to get your dominion out and spreading, and you want to get temples built in that dominion ASAP so you can move over to that free spawn economy. Very important for us. As for national items, we have no national items. As for national spells, we have a pretty decent amount. First, let's look at Thaumaturgy. At Thaumaturgy 6, we have End of Culture, which requires 5 fire to cast. Now, do note that we cannot get that easily. We could get up to fire 4, maybe. That's really going to be rare. So I would not count on that. If you want to do End of Culture, and you probably do, you need to build a pretender to do it. It costs 60 fire gems, and End of Culture this is the end of culture for the entire world as chaos increases worldwide. The spawn rate of Oni, both from temples under friendly dominion and Oni generals, will be greatly increased. And I believe this will make unrest spawn in the entire world, or it's unrest that pushes out 1 from your dominion. I'm not 100% sure which it is, but either way, it gives you extra unrest to work with. and it doubles your chance for Oni to spawn. According to the Dominions 5 wiki, which was the best information I could find on the spawn mechanics, you get a spawn attempt equal to turmoil plus 1. So we can start with the turmoil 3, so that could be 4 checks. And then remember, you get additional checks based on the unrest. When a spawn check happens, so you've got a temple and it's in your dominion, there's basically a roll that happens. There's a chance that just nothing happens. It uses up 1 attempt. If that doesn't happen, then you have a chance to get your really rare guy. And according to the wiki, it's 2%. If that happens, then you stop and start over. If that doesn't happen, then you have a chance to get a Kiro Oni or a Ao Oni. If that doesn't happen, then you have a chance to get Ko Oni. So essentially, you want as many of these checks as you can get. So you really, really, really want to pump that up high. So Turmoil 3, and then maybe you want to have End of Culture. That's 8 checks total. Every single temple in your own dominion. That's a lot of chances to get them. And you just need lots of these guys. While they're pretty good troops in general, they're also very weak to getting banished. And when battles go badly and you lose a bunch of them, you can't just go to a fort and queue 50 of them up because you're otherwise doing really well. So End of Culture, I find, is very, very vital to us. Now, do you start with rushing here or not? I don't know, because we have some other things that we need too. Our next national spell is from Alteration 6, and it is called End of Weakness. End of Weakness requires 2 earth and uses 1 earth gem, and it hits the entire battlefield, and it grants all demons invulnerability 15. The invulnerability is essentially protection that can be negated by using a magic weapon. Does not stack with natural protection. This juices your demons up a lot. Now even your weakest guy has 15 invulnerability, and if he gets killed, he becomes a spirit who has ethereal and 15 invulnerability. So if they don't have a magic weapon, that is really hard to chew through. This is a very noticeable spike in combat ability for your demons. Very noticeable. Next, in Conjuration, we have quite a few different spells. First up, at level 0, so we just start with these, we have a Hanya Pact. Now, this targets a Naminari, and it will turn her up into a Chunari. A Chunari is just an improved chassis. It ends up with 1 fire, 2 death, and a nature, and goes up to 13 research points. That's pretty decent. I mean, that's a good jump in her abilities. That's 4 extra research. Our next spell takes that person and turns it into a Greater Hanya Pact. The Greater Hanya Pact turns them into an actual Hanya, which is kind of like a snake lady. They go up to 2 fire, 3 death, and 1 nature, and now they have 17 research. In addition, they have lots of fire resist, some poison resist, and a heat aura. So can be pretty good. I do believe that actually starts them having upkeep, though, when you do those spells for some reason. I would have to verify that, but just be aware that may be the case. This makes Death Gems quite a premium for us because we would like to do this to have some better mages. That opens up some combat magic that we otherwise don't have. But we also need Death Gems to make scroll staves, to make helmets that give us fear. Would be really nice for some of our units, to do Long Dead, to do some of our other summons. Those are quite at a premium, so just keep that in mind. Next up, we have Summon Kappa. We'll look at the stats in a second here. The Kappa are pretty good units, actually. They have decent protection and a nice attack. At 2, we have Karasu Tengus. At 3, we have Kanoa Tengus and Ambush of Tigers. At 4, we have Shikome and Ghost General. At 5, we have Dai Tengu and Nushi. At 6, we have Gozumezu. At 7, we have Araburu Kami. Lots and lots of summons here. Let's take a look at those. Taking a look at Yomi's summons, first up we have the Kappa. The Kappa is a pretty good little chassis here. 15 protections, not bad. He's size 3. He's amphibian. He has recuperation. And he has land encumbrance. So if he's fighting on land, he gets additional fatigue. So his encumbrance is actually kind of sort of high. They would much prefer to be fighting underwater. What's nice about these guys is they have 2 attacks. They have a claw attack, and they have a Kopo. The Kopo gives limps, but when you hit people, and it's armor piercing. So these are actually pretty good. You can do some work with these guys. Next up, we have the Karasa Tengu. That's these guys. Now, these are some summonable sacreds. However, we don't have the best nature, and we don't have the nature air crosspath natively that's required to summon them. But if you can empower, or maybe you make your pretender to do it, these guys are all right. Sacred, flying, mountain survival, and storm immunity. They are size 4. They have 14 attack and 16 defense, so quite good troops. They're wielding that katana, and they're very good at it. 17 attack. In addition, they can throw lightning and do lightning strikes. They have 1 shot of that, and it's area of effect 1. So quite nice. You could have them hold and fire, and then go into melee combat once they've used that up. The Kanoa Tengu is similar to the previous guy. He's a little better stat-wise, I believe. You get more of them. The Summon Karasa gives you 3 of them for 2 gems. This gives us 5 plus half level. Now, it does require air and earth, which we do actually have the crosspaths for on some of our Oni, and requires 3 air gems. So, quite good. I would definitely get these guys if I can. You probably are not basing your bless on them, but they'll use your bless, so that can be pretty nice. Next up, we have the Ambush of Tigers. As usual, I think we have better things to do, especially because we could summon Tengu possibly than Tigers. We also have troops who have dark vision, so their one little benefit doesn't really come into play here. Next up, we have the Shikome. Again, a really nice troop that can be a little hard for us to actually get out. The requires death 2, so we can do that. 5 death gems, and it gives us 10. So very efficient. We get sacred, fire resistant, cold resistant, poison resistant. They are actual demons that go berserk, and with 15 hit points, they have a decent chance of taking a hit and going berserk. They are demons, and they dual wield ghost rending claws, which are 13 attack that do 12 slashing / magic damage, and they paralyze undead if they hit them. So that could be pretty decent depending on what you're fighting, but even if it's not undead, that's not a bad damage profile, especially on a Berserker 4. That's going to go up to 17 attack and 16 damage. So very nice use of death gems if you can get here. Next up, we have the Shura. The Shura is a ghost general. That is this gentleman right here. Very, very nice. I love summoning these guys in. They are good leaders. They have no upkeep and good morale. They are undead, so they're amphibians. They have fear. They have cold resistant, poison resistant, a chill aura, and they are ethereal. They do have that vulnerability to assault and spirit form, so you can't buff them too easily. Do note that these are not demons, so end of weakness will not affect them, but still, they come in with a Baneblade, which is they're very good at using. When you hit somebody with a Baneblade, they have to magic resist save or they decay. Very, very strong guy for that. I like these guys as leaders quite a bit. They save forts and they save money, so I can afford more Dione rather than demon generals. So I quite like Shura and getting them out when I can. Next up, we have the Dai Tengu. Dai Tengu give us a commander, which is the Dai Tengu, and we get 13 Tengu warriors and 20 Karasu Tengu. Now, this requires air 2 and an earth, so it's hard to cast. In addition, it costs 55 air gems. We only have 1 air gem as native income, so that's a little on the rough side. However, this is the commander that you get. Air 3, Earth 1, Nature 1, and he is a priest level 2. That is better than our other priests. He has 15 research, he's flying, he has storm immunity. Very, very nice. I love getting these guys in if I can, but it's a very hard spell to cast, and we have a lot of pressure on our pretender design, so it's hard to be able to fit these guys in. Next up, we have the Nushi. The Nushi is a Water 3, Death 1, Nature 2. It has good research, of course, no upkeep because she's a summon. Do note she has homesickness, so if she leaves wherever she was summoned, she will start losing maximum hit points every month. And I believe it's 20% of her HP every month. So you really can't be going anywhere with these ones, but I would still summon them in. They have awe, they have some poison or cold resist. I believe they change into, swamp serpents, so snakes. They are good for just free researchers, which we are desperate for. Although getting to Nushi is not exactly easy. It's Conjuration 5. If they do fight, they give you some different magic than you otherwise would have. They're fine. They're fine. The homesickness is unfortunate. Makes them hard to use. Next, we have the Gozu Mezu. That is Horseface and Oxhead. When you cast it, it is 3 death to cast and costs 6 death gems, and you get 1 of each. They are demons that wield soul catchers. I believe it's the same for both. Yeah, he's got soul catcher and gore. So soul catchers they have trapped soul, which is difficult to resist. And I believe that's a soul slay effect. If it's not, then it's a paralyze. Good weapons. I mean, they hit super duper hard. They have decent attack with them. They're so late in the game, though, at Conjuration 6, and they use death gems, which we have lots of uses for. I don't know about these guys. I do like them. They are very cool and flavorful, but I don't know about actually getting any use out of them. Finally, we have the Araburu Kami. The Araburu Kami is here. Very, very nice guy here. Very, very nice. When you cast that, for a death 1, fire 1, and 5 death gems, you get 1. You get 1 guy. And note, this is a troop. Even if you got there all the way down to Conjuration 7, how many of these are you going to be able to pump out? 5, maybe, a turn? But let's say you did. Let's say you got them out. They are amazing. They are demons. They have the chaos power, so their stats are much better than they otherwise look. They're wielding that enchanted Nodachi, which is a very strong weapon. They are heavily armored. They come natively with Awe 2. A really cool troop, really good. I really wish it was a bigger spell, like you summoned 5 or 10 of these, even if the cost was increased, because it's going to be really difficult for you to get them in any numbers that matter. But cool either way, I suppose. All right, in addition to that, magic-wise, we have a lot of things that we really need. So in the early game, if you were going to expand with Dione, you really want to be getting Fire Shield. Fire Shield helps you clear out chaff and makes you basically immune to Long Dead spam, which is one of your big weaknesses. They're immune to your fear. If you went Awe, they're immune to your Awe. They're tireless. They'll just grind you down very slowly, but sooner or later they'll probably win with enough numbers. Fire Shield basically makes them just auto-immolate themselves. In addition to that, another one that was super duper useful can be Flight if you've got the air random on your guy. Flight's just good for maybe you can attack rear at the end of your buff script. And if you do decide to retreat, and especially if you've already shifted over to spirit form, you just fly off the battlefield nice and safe. You don't get cut down while you're trying to run away. Alteration also has some good stuff. In the early game, getting an extra protection buff for your Dione is really nice. In addition to that, Skeletal Body can be used by some of our general type units, or even your Dione if you're fighting a lot of piercing weapons. With a gem, your air guys could personal misform, which would make them much, much tougher. At 4, you could give yourself Temper Flesh, which gives you resistant to slash, blunt, and piercing and fire damage. Can be a really, really nice self-buff for them. Up at 5, you could self-buff yourself with Invulnerability, which gives you Invulnerability 25. Now note that doesn't stack with your natural protection, but it will stack with your armor, although not well. I think this takes you to like 27 or 28 armor. Very noticeable. Also, if you're not making hats, this sets your head protection at 25, which is very noticeable. If you were to go up further, we would get Soul Vortex. Soul Vortex is very good. This is where your Dione now are like invincible. You do 1 armor negating. They do get a magic resistance. And if you hit them, it basically just drains their life, gives it to you, and restores your endurance. So once you have this up, you are really, really rocking. In addition, combining that with Phoenix Pyre is where your Dione really come into their own. Every one of our Dione can cast this, and every one of our Dione can cast Soul Vortex. So this is really, really the wombo combo here. With Phoenix Pyre, when you die, you explode and do 10 AP fire damage, in area of effect 50, you gain a bunch of fatigue, and then you just reappear somewhere else on the battlefield. Now, normally, you would be super duper fatigued and they will probably come finish you off. If you don't have fatigue, like you fall asleep, this won't go off. So it will not work while you're unconscious. However, combining this with Soul Vortex will just top up your endurance very, very quickly. So once you have those two running, it is incredibly difficult to kill a Dione. Incredibly difficult to kill them. In Conjuration, at Conjuration 3, Summon Earth Power helps with our endurance issues. That can be really nice. In addition, we have access to all those nice summons that we would like to use, and we may even do some remote site searching like with Dark Knowledge. Out of Thaumaturgy, a surprisingly good spell for Dione early on is Battle Fury. Battle Fury ups our attack by +2. Because our Enchanted Nodachi is a length 3 weapon, I believe a base Dione with this cast on them has 17 attack. That is an incredibly powerful repel weapon. Incredibly powerful. In addition, sometimes you just get that bad morale roll and run away, and that's a great opportunity to chop down an otherwise pretty invulnerable Dione. So getting the extra 2 morale is really actually pretty handy. Every one of our guys can do this out of the box. So I did in this game, I just happened to start with Thaumaturgy 2, so I was using that, and that's why I was like, wow, this is really good. So in the super early game, a Bless, and then a Fire Shield, and then a Battle Fury is a perfectly fine script. You can beat actual barbarians with that, depending on what your Bless is. So that can be really powerful. In addition, as mentioned, Construction 1 to be able to make Black Steel helmets for your Oni is really nice. When you get up to Construction 3, that would also open up like Owl Quills. We do have a little bit of air income. That would also open up some other helmet choices if you don't like the Black Steel ones. And it would allow us to temper armors, which if you're using any of the non-demon troops, could be useful. But what I like about it is if you have the unarmored demons with you, they won't waste time buffing them when they go off script, and they'll hit your Dione with the temper armor instead. And then once they're all buffed, they'll stop casting it. Temper armor can be a frustrating spell when they're spamming it when they have better things to do. Overall, evocation I would say is very low on my to-do list. We don't have great combat magic in the early game. Dione just tired themselves out too much to do casting. One thing of note might be Shadow Bolt. We do have some Death 2s that we could maybe get, or Banefire Darts is another one that we could get on some of our guys. But overall, I think evocation's very low on our priority list. Okay, let's bring all that together. Yomi is a pretty unique nation that combines recruitable demon super combatants with Freespawn demons. So very interesting. We have a couple different threat vectors that we can go with, and we could even maybe mix in a few bandits, a few Bakiono, just as something that can't be banished. So you have kind of like a triple threat that you can go with. We need a lot of research, and we're really bad at it. Like, I am in early winter of year 1, so almost the end of year 2. I've got a hero, I've got my god, I've got 2 researchers over here. I had 3 people out site searching before this war started, and then I have some Dione. That is the entirety of my forces. So I am dirt broke. I am getting a fort over here. We just got attacked, it looks like. Yeah, you should be building that. But I've got a fort going up. I'm in 2 different wars on 2 different sides of my empire, which is really difficult for me at the moment. Remember that when you're talking about the Oni spawn, we really, really want mountains or highlands. So in my early game, I tried to prioritize this area right here so that I could get lots of demon spawns. I probably had about triple this spawn in the entire game. So this would be triple this in the end of year 2. And as I get more temples out, as I can afford them and protect them, because again, I got sideswiped by Archocephali here, that'll only increase. that'll only increase. In addition, I wasn't able to test it out in this game, but I believe caves are treated as mountains and highlands. And if that's the case, this is your playground. We have dark vision troops, and because we have spirit forms, there's nothing down here with magic weapons. There's very little down here that uses magic that's particularly good against ethereal troops. We are going to dominate down here. And if that's the case, I would temple every single province, and I would maybe fort every single entrance and keep people out. And this would just be my demon breeding ground, and we would just have a bajillion demons ready to pour out up onto the surface. Map layer, cave layer is very, very nice for Yomi. Right the turn I was going to go down there was when both of these wars kicked off. So, because I wanted to get down there, but it is what it is on that. I do think making a concerted effort to get down there is worth it. And I think that with our super combatants, for some of the smaller nations that are underground, we're very good against. And for things that have giants that might be a little spooky to send a super combatant against, we could switch over to Demon Chaff and just drown them in those guys. So I think we have good underground matchups as Yomi. One particular weakness we have is magic weapons. When I play a nation that has easy access to magic weapons, if I am near Yomi, I rush Yomi. They have nothing that is scary in the early game other than Dione. And if they're not spamming Dione, magic weapons will just cut through all of their Freespawn demons like butter. Just no resistance whatsoever. If you're up against that, you're going to have a bad time. End of weakness is huge for us, and it's completely negated by magic weapons. If they're going that route, I think you lean into your super combatants if you can, or maybe you get some independents out, or maybe you switch over to trying to do like undead. You got to shift a little bit because you are going to suffer greatly if you lose that ability to have that spirit form recuperation that these guys have. It is pretty vital to their survivability, I would say. All that being said, I mean, this is a spooky, spooky force here. I mean, even the junkier of these big guys, 18 attack, 33 damage. That is ridiculous. We are going to chop some fools down with this squad. And with the lower guys, these guys are going to be peppering them with fire, which some of our guys have some immunity to. And our little guys are going to run in and clog up the battlefield. So very, very fun. Just have this chaotic mass of demons with big Nodachi weapons slicing people up. It's a lot of fun to play. It's a lot of fun to play. You do need to control your territory, though. Because we need so many temples, you cannot just be like, okay, well, I'm only going to put a temple where I have a fortress, which is kind of what I generally do as my non-Yomi playstyle. On this nation, no. I had temples all over this place, every single mountain, every single highland. And when I finished that, I would start doing my other areas. Or if I had an area that was really safe and I wasn't worried about getting attacked, I would put a temple in early. Just get that ball rolling, start building up that demon horde. Because especially if they don't have those magic weapons, you are so hard to deal with actually finishing off troops. It is incredibly fun to play there. Okay, let's take a look at pretenders. Yomi has a relatively small selection, and they have the like East Asian Titan group and Monster group. Starting at the Dominion ones, we have most of the usual suspects. In addition, we have a Master Sorcerer. He is interesting in that he has only 70 points. That is really cheap for a guy. He's just a death 1, but if you can use that, that is one of the cheapest god chassis, I think, out there. So that could be pretty nice. He's got a cool model, too. Great Enchantress is nice if you are going to go up Glamour. She does give you some Glamour income, which could be useful. Moving up to Dominion 2. Interesting ones, but again, I just don't know how useful these are. So we have a Dragon King, several different varieties of those, but they're just so pricey. I mean, 200 points. I don't know if I'm sold on that. We also have the Black Taurus of the North and the Tiger of the West. We've used this guy before. He was okay. The Turtle's interesting in that he has 22 protection, but that's not really high enough to be out solo expanding. He does have Strength of Winter, so when it is the season winter, he gets extra HP. I don't know. He's a very cool model, though. Moving up to the Titans, we do have a unique Titan here in the Oni Kunshu. He's all right. He's basically a less magical Oni. Very similar stats otherwise, including a slightly better Oni summoner. Now, do note you do pay a lot for him. 240 points. That is expensive. That is, what, 6 scales in cost? For a unit that you basically could just recruit for 685 gold. So, I don't know. That's a little on the weak side. His turmoil scale doesn't do anything. We've already got max turmoil +1. That's a bit of a waste. I'm not too sold on him. Some of these other ones, the Calming of the Sun's a really interesting chassis, but she's very difficult to use. She's pricey, 280 points. Her big thing is she has Sight Vengeance, 15 versus MR. So if you find a way to keep her alive, so we're going to do like Fire Shield, we're going to do probably self-buff Ethereal, we're going to need to craft some gear. She does have the length 3, so she could do some repelling. She does have Awe, which helps a little bit. I don't know. I did one game in 5 with her, and it was fun, but it's just so cost ineffective. We do have the classic Demi-Lich. Everyone loves the Demi-Lich. Moving up to Dominion 4, we have the Idols, we have the Monolith, we have Geyser, we have Blood Fountain. I think of these, the most notable ones are Idol of Sorcery to up our magic scales, which we have okay efficiency, but not too many. So anything we can do to help our research would be handy. In addition, the Statue of War is a really interesting choice. He's only 180 points, so that's not too bad. He has the fire that we probably want to have Fire 5 for our End of Culture spell. He has Earth, which has some pretty valuable blessings for our Dione. And he summons in Barbarians, so just another group of chaff that you can send into fights. Now, Barbarians aren't particularly great, but maybe like you send your Co-Oni in front with the Barbarians behind them, so they don't have to take the brunt of attacks. Maybe that could be a little more useful there. So I do like this guy. I think he's definitely usable. I believe this is who we used in the original, the very first Dominion stream I ever did. I believe we used a Statue of War. So pretty fun there. Okay, let's take a look at an actual pretender that I built. All right, this is a Great Enchantress. I went with her because I wanted to go Awe, and by starting with 1 Glamour, this was the cheapest Awe chassis I could get. She has Undead Command 1 to allow my Demon Priest to move more demons around. She has Awe, which really kicks up the Oni survivability. Combining Awe and Fear is an amazing combo. And then combine that with a chassis that has a length 3 high attack repel and can do self buffs of Fire Shield. Makes for an incredibly tough unit to get rid of, and one that doesn't rely on killing to get victories. He can just outlast people and either kill themselves on his Fire Shield or they get scared and run away. In addition, I took Enchanted Blood. Now, I do think that regeneration is better. Regeneration is really good on Dione, but it's expensive. It's very expensive. And getting regeneration and Awe was just out of my budget. So Enchanted Blood gives you a little bit of regen. Probably not going to save your life. Where I find it comes in handy is it stops profuse bleeding. For some reason, certain units feel like they're more likely to bleed, and it's probably because they're more likely to survive the first hit. I saw this a lot on burning ones in Abyssia, for example. But I've lost a lot of Dione to profuse bleeding, and this just stops that. The regen is nice. It's better than nothing. Do note we do have 2 forms, which is handy. And we get the extra magic resistance for Dione is not bad. People can try to banish them. They'll try to soul slay them. You do have that second spirit form that you definitely don't want to be banished in, because if you escape, you come back as just a full Dione again. For any of your other smaller sacreds, especially the demon ones, getting that extra magic resistance is nice, and the extra little tiny bit of regen is nice. I actually like this quite a bit. I was pretty happy with this. In addition, He started as Awake, and look at these scales. It looks really bad, but these are actually really good for us. Remember, we want Turmoil a lot. So out of the box, we get 4 temple checks to spawn Freespawn. Is 1 plus your Turmoil scales. So really nice to just get that started. Because I'm not really recruiting a lot of troops, and if I do recruit something, it's probably a Bakemono show, which is really cheap. Sloth is just free points to me. Combine those two, that makes your Dominion pretty nasty for most other nations. So you're not helping them out if they get your scales. Heat 3 or Heat 2, we only have half penalty for being above this, so it's not hurting our income too much. In addition, it generally keeps things from freezing and gives me those the Fire Oni free spawn, which I prefer over the cold ones. I was able to still afford Growth 1 and Fortune 2. Turmoil 3 plus Fortune 2 was really noticeable in my game. I had a lucky game where I had 1 or 2 bad events, and every other event was like, here's 300 gold, here's 5 gems, here's 10 gems, here's 1,000 gold, just over and over and over again. This was noticeably good this game. Now, that is RNG dependent. I mean, sometimes we go high fortune and we still get horrific events, so your mileage may vary there. Combining fortune and magic influences the events you're getting, though, and definitely adds a lot of you get gem events to that pool. So by having the magic scale, it was really helping out on my recruitment. I really, really like those. Other pretender builds I would consider, I definitely consider a Statue of War. Again, you really want that Fire 5 to be able to cast End of Weakness, and then maybe you could go Hardskin. Hardskin would help your Dione out early on, but when you do End of Weakness, it's not going to stack. Maybe you go really hardcore and you try to get Fortitude. So this is actually not too bad. We're awake. We have Fortitude, so we are going to be more resistant, half damage from Pierce, Slash, and Blunt weapons. We still have 3 blessing points left. What would we grab? Maybe Inspirational Presence wouldn't be horrible. We do have to kind of watch what we spend here. So we could grab that. I think this is totally playable. We do have a little bit of morale issues with some of our cheaper troops. This would help them. If we didn't go with that, maybe an attack and a superior morale, or maybe we go... I don't think we really need the extra fire resistance, frankly, so maybe I'd go that route. We still have some points. It should be noted on the Pretender I showed before, I went with only 4 Dominion Strength. We don't have recruitable Sacreds, and we're going to Temple spam. Our Freespawn are not limited by the strength of our Dominion. All that matters is that our Dominion is present, and we have a Temple. So starting low is actually not too bad as Yomi. Especially you don't really want to come off as really threatening. You want to look like you're doing really bad, and you want to be doing really well. So having weak Dominion kind of makes you look like, oh, I'm not doing too good, you should attack somebody else. Can come in handy. Of course, that can also backfire where you look like the weak, easy target. In this case, again, we are going to go like that. So, hey, you thought I only had 1 scale? Joke's on you, reverso. Now we have a ton. So again, we could get, in fact, we could have really good scales. And that actually leaves me some points. So maybe I would add a death here so that I could take Undead Command. Maybe we drop that off. We still have more points. Something like that. We still have 2 more points. Grab that attack skill. 2 attack skill and Fortitude and Undead Command. We're awake. So we get our Fortitude and we have amazing scales. In fact, we could even up it to 5. This is really good. I would totally play this guy. This is really nice. In fact, you know what? 2D, I'm going to save you just in case I ever play Yomi. I like you. Otherwise, let's say you wanted to go for the regen route. That's going to be more difficult. That's really pricey. That also means I don't think we have anybody who has fire and nature. That's going to make it very difficult to get that fire 5. And I am quite set on getting End of Culture. I think if you're playing Yomi, you want to use those free spawns. I don't think you can be a one-trick pony with Dione. I think you will end up getting countered by something. Bone Tribe killed one of my Oni just straight up. They're berserking, so they ignored my fear. They ignored my awe. and they didn't run away. And their javelins actually ended up killing them, my guy, somehow. So it was really nasty. It was really nasty. So that would be difficult. I guess we have this guy. We do have the Idle Man. He does have that. So let's look. So we're looking at 7 here, and I want 5 here. That gets us regen. We have 3 points left. I guess we'd probably want to go shock resistance. Maybe that would be okay. And again, I mean, because we can do this to our scales, I'm not going to get the death if I couldn't afford the bless there. Maybe on this guy we go with higher dominion. Again, totally playable. Now our Oni have regen. That makes them much harder to kill off. That's pretty good. They have some shock resistance and a little extra attack. Again, totally playable. I'd play this guy. He's cool. Sure, we'll save him. Yeah, there you go. All right, so Yomi, very cool nation. Very cool nation. In conclusion, Yomi is a pretty unique nation. In the early era, Therados is the only other major Freespawn nation, and I think that this nation's easier to play than Therados is. They are very fun. They're very flavorful. Like, I didn't read all the little blurbs, but there's lots of little information here that's really interesting. I would totally suggest reading the lore about all the things that are going on here. We have some cool summons. We have some cool magic. Just all around a really fun nation. I think they're better than they were in 5, but they're still not the best. We have some distinct weaknesses: being banished, magic weapons, not having the best battlefield magic, not having good research, but needing lots of research. But on the scale of fun, I think they're really high up there. I think it'd be very interesting to play a game where you concentrate on a small mountain kingdom, ideally, and then you go underground and conquer underground. And then by the time you're done with that, hopefully you have End of Weakness and you have End of Culture, and you could just flood the surface with all of these Freespawn demons. An incredibly cool play style, to be sure. All right, builders, I hope you enjoyed this one. And yeah, check Yomi out. If you decide to watch the stream after this, just please remember that was my first Dominion stream, and be kind. Yeah, it was kind of a cool game. We had some triumphs and some frustrations, but especially the audio. 6 months in, and I think we are maybe finally nearing the end of the battle of the audio. Maybe I finally got it tuned in. Okay, take care, builders. Build something cool, and I will see you in the next one.